What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty Ninja, and it's only January, and we've already had a big video game showcase. And that showcase, of course, is the Xbox Developer Direct. And since I'm making this video, obviously I've watched it, and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. So I think the easiest way to do this video is just to go in the order the show did. So I will start off with the secret game. So if you were checking out the promo material before this direct, they had one game that they were obviously trying to keep secret, and that game turned out to be Ninja Gaiden 4. Which is super exciting because we haven't gotten a new mainline Ninja Gaiden game in over 10 years. And it's actually funny, if you watch my video from last week, I mentioned the Xbox magazine when I was talking about demos, because you used to be able to, if you bought that magazine, you used to get demos in that magazine. And I never played the NES Ninja Gaiden games before. The first time I was actually introduced to this franchise was actually, they did a whole spread on it before the 04 game was released in the Xbox magazines. And I was obsessed with ninjas as a kid, hence my stupid name. And I read and reread that article because this game looked so cool. I was obsessed with it, and I was super psyched for it to come out. I got that game for Christmas that year, and I played it multiple times for several hours, and I literally could not get past the first boss. Ninja Gaiden, the 04 game, was my first Soulsborne as far as the difficulty was concerned. I understand that it's not really a Soulsborne type of game, but it was that first game that I played as a kid that I was just like concerned by how difficult it was. Like, it took me a long time to really get the hang of that game. That first boss was so hard that I had convinced myself that I had to have been doing something wrong. So I played it and replayed it a couple of times for several hours, thinking that I had like gone a wrong way or something, and that I shouldn't have gotten to that boss right then, that I wasn't strong enough to be fighting this boss because it was so insanely difficult. It actually wasn't until college the next year that I watched my buddy play this game from start to finish that I realized the trick to beating him, and that I was just an idiot and I was missing it. He is super difficult, but once you kind of understand the trick to beating him, it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm a big Coheed and Cambria fan, and their best album, in my opinion, Good Apollo, came out around the same time. And I remember playing the 04 Ninja Gaiden game my freshman year in college and just listening to that album on repeat while I hack and slashed my way through the first Ninja Gaiden game. And I hold that album and the first Ninja Gaiden game in high regard, and I can never think of one without thinking of the other. So I'm super psyched to get my hands on Ninja Gaiden 4. It looks awesome. I may even have to break out that album when this game comes out. Like I said, I think of those two things hand in hand. Unfortunately, this was the only game during the direct that didn't give us an actual release date. They hit us with the vague fall 2025, so we'll have to wait a bit for that actual release date. While we do wait for the release date, they did shadow drop an Unreal Engine 5 remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black that you can literally play right now on Xbox Game Pass. Speaking of Game Pass, I believe all of these games will be day one Game Pass, even though only one of them explicitly stated such, but every single one of them did list Game Pass as one of their platforms. So I assume that means they're going to be day one. They're all Xbox games, obviously, because it's an Xbox Developer Direct. So I would assume all of these are going to be day one. So we'll talk about South of Midnight. And honestly, coming off the Ninja Gaiden reveal, I will admit the South of Midnight segment was a bit of a letdown. I have heard people shit on this game, and I don't necessarily agree. I don't think that it should be getting the hate that it's getting. I think it actually looks kind of cool. The environment looks amazing and the creature design is really interesting to me. I like the idea of basing this game around American folklore. I think that's pretty cool. There is a lot of interesting folklore in America, especially down south, that I think could be really interesting. The music that they showed off during one of the boss fights just fucking rocked. I thought it was awesome. I love when music, especially during boss fights, is integrated really well into a gameplay. So yeah, I was definitely excited about that. So this game definitely has some potential. However, I did have 2 issues. First of all, it does look like we're kind of spell slinging a lot, and I just personally don't find that type of combat super interesting. So I have my doubts that it's going to be fun. And the other thing that makes me nervous about this game is that it's made by Compulsion Games, which also, among other games, made We the Happy Few. And that was a game that, like South of Midnight, seemed like it had a really cool concept. I think South of Midnight looks very interesting, but that's what drew me to We the Happy Few, and that game was a slog to play. I really did not like We the Happy Few, so I'm afraid that even though I do think South of Midnight has potential, I didn't like their past game. Their only other game that I played is We the Happy Few, and I did not like that game either, so I have my reservations. I'm still going to give it a shot because it is going to be on Game Pass on April 8th, but it's definitely the game from the showcase that I feel the least confident about. Moving on to the next game, and this is a game that I am very excited about that I didn't know a ton about before this direct, and that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And if I remember correctly, I think this is a game that got revealed at last year's Xbox Game Showcase, and it has this really cool hook. It's basically revolves around this world where this witch painted a number, and everyone older than that number gets essentially Thanos snapped out of existence, and that number goes down every year. And so each year they sent out an expedition, why they only sent out one I don't know, to kill the witch. And as the title would suggest, you play as the 33rd of those expeditions. And this game definitely caught my eye at that showcase, but it was just your typical reveal trailer, so they didn't really tell us a whole lot about the game. But of course, this being the developer direct, they definitely gave us a way deeper dive into Expedition 33, and it's got me very psyched for this game. First of all, it's developed by a very small studio, which we learned a lot about during the direct, which makes me want to root for them even more. It is a turn-based RPG, a genre that I do enjoy. However, there's a little bit of a twist. You can no-hit this game because you can actually parry the enemy's attacks, which I think is really cool. There's also quick time events as well. So that doesn't make this a truly unique turn-based RPG because we've seen some of these elements in other games, but combining these with a genre that I like just makes me even more excited because it kind of just means that at its floor, it's not gonna be your run-of-the-mill turn-based RPG, which I appreciate. I will admit that some of the character models look kind of the same to me, at least your party members. There are some other creatures that showed off during this direct that I assume you're going to encounter along the way that look pretty cool, but the actual characters that you play as do kind of look the same to me, so that's a little bit of a bummer. It does have a world map, which I think is a nice touch, so there's a lot of things about this game that I think are going to be really interesting. But the thing that I get the most excited about with Expedition 33, and it was actually something that wasn't covered in this direct, and it was something that I didn't know until I started to kind of dig a little bit deeper into this game after the direct, and that is this cast is loaded. Charlie Cox plays a character. He's of course Daredevil in the Netflix Daredevil series. So that's really exciting because I think he's a great actor. And from my knowledge, he doesn't do too many video games. This may be his only video game that he's done. Andy Serkis is also in this game as well. And I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan. So obviously I'm a huge Andy Serkis fan. And there's a couple of voice actors from Baldur's Gate 3, a game that I really enjoyed, but most notably Jennifer English, who plays Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, is doing a voice in this game as well. So the cast is really loaded, which tells me typically, it's not always true, but typically that usually means that there was something about this game outside of course, the paycheck that drew this cast to want to be in it. So again, I'm very, very excited for this game. Can't wait for it to come out. It comes out on April 24th. They ended the direct, rightfully so, with a game that was on a lot of people's most anticipated games of 2025 lists, and that is Doom: The Dark Ages. And if you watched my video where I talked about my most anticipated games, you know that it didn't even make an honorable mention for me. And there's a good reason for that. Despite being a big fan of first-person shooters, I never really got into the Doom games, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. When I was a little kid, a couple of my buddies were obsessed with the original Doom game. And I remember seeing it in a game store and being super, super excited. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, can you get me this game? I think it's going to be really fun. Unfortunately, it was rated 17. And he basically used that as an excuse that I couldn't have it. He's like, oh, well, you're supposed to be 17 to play this game. You're not 17, obviously. So you can't play this game. And in the back of my head, even as a kid, I thought, but I play Wolfenstein and that's pretty much the same game. But I was really, really bummed. And I thought to myself, I can't wait until I'm 17 so I can play this game. Of course, I was a dumb little kid. Obviously, my dad didn't care about the rating. He just didn't want to buy me this game. And that was just kind of his excuse. But I have to admit that I thought I didn't get this game for the longest time, longer than I should have. It's kind of embarrassing how long I thought I didn't get this game just because I wasn't 17. And then when the 2016 Doom game came out, I did give it a shot. I was plenty old enough at that point to be playing these games, but I'm not sure if it was necessarily the game because this has never happened before and it hasn't happened since, but I played the 2016 Doom game and it made me physically ill to play. And it had nothing to do with the content. I'm a big horror fan, so I've watched plenty of fucked up shit. It would just like literally have this like physical reaction to playing the game where it just made me feel sick. I could play it for short bursts, but it was almost like wearing a Horcrux. Like it would just make me just feel like shit. And so I would play it for an hour or two, but then I would have to set it down. And I did that a couple of times. I think I played the game for about 4 or 5 hours, kind of in these short bursts, but I couldn't finish it because of that. But I did recently buy it on, I think it was on sale for like $4 recently on a Steam sale. It is verified on my Steam Deck, so I definitely want to give it another shot because that was several years ago that happened. So I'm definitely looking to give it another shot. Now, The Dark Ages, and they talk a lot about this during the direct, is a prequel, so you don't necessarily need to play the 2016 game, which is good for me because maybe I can't physically play it, but I just want to give it another shot because, again, I've never heard anything but great things about this entire franchise. This game looks badass. The other games before, the 2016 Doom game and then Doom Eternal, I've heard great things about. So I'm really looking forward to this game, even though I wouldn't say that I'm not a fan of the franchise because I love first-person shooters. It just, again, I've just not played a whole lot of the franchise. But Doom: The Dark Ages is out on May 15th. But as always, those are just my thoughts on the Xbox Developer Direct. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Especially, I'd love to know if the 2016 Doom game made you physically sick to play. I looked it up. I'm not the only one. I'm not some weirdo. It's definitely happened to other people, but I'm just kind of curious. So let me know in the comments down below. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, which I assume that you did since you're watching it this far into it, definitely smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you get notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related content. So if you enjoy that content, again, I assume that you do since you're this far in this video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?